Welcome to Dad Rocks, a podcast for dads who love music, made by dads who love music.
Hello and welcome to Dad Rocks, the podcast about being a dad and loving music and how the two intersect in our lives. I'm your host Josh, and today my guest is Matt Goldman. Matt is a musician, a former teacher and principal, and now the owner of a bookstore and cafe and music space up in Ellenville, New York. More importantly, however, he is the father of two young kids. Now, Matt and I go back. We go way back, actually. We went to nursery school together, and we're friendly throughout our entire childhood and into our teenhood. And we're still friendly today, even though we haven't really seen each other in a long time. And we'll discuss how we probably haven't seen or talked to each other in over a decade. I think the last time that I saw him in person, and as I mentioned, was a show in Brooklyn of a local band that we all knew the members of and are still friendly of, a band called the Defending Champions. And I think the last time I chatted with him, well, at least we chatted on and off on Facebook, is when the band Fun with Jack Antonoff and Nate Roos of the band The Format, and Jack Antonoff, the producer, whatever, they were playing the Grammys, and I messaged him and said, how insane is it that your former bandmate is playing the Grammys right now? Because Matt was a part of the band Steel Train for about 5 years, and so he worked with Jack, directly in that band. So Matt has been on my list of people to talk to for a while, and I finally got around to talking to him. And it was great catching up with him because, again, we haven't really seen or talked to each other in forever, but when we started talking, it was reconnecting with someone that you've known your entire life, and it's very special to have those conversations and to learn more about him. And as I'll talk about and say, I knew him as one kind of person. We played like Kadima basketball. I knew he was an athlete, and then when he got into high school, sorry about that mic bump, when he got into high school, he started playing in this punk band, and that punk band got was well known in the pop punk circuit, something I wasn't part of, but a lot of my friends were, of people I was friendly with, and my brother was in it, and so I knew about them. And then a few years later, I hear that he's touring the country, so there was a lot to catch up with him, and have a real sit down conversation with him for, about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and catch up. It was just a great conversation, and, I kind of hit him with some questions that he wasn't expecting, and it got a little, poignant and a little emotional at times, which I think is great. And, we have a great conversation. Some things, you may be like, oh, they're catching up. We're catching up. We're friends with each other, and we've known each other for close to 40 years. So, there's no real tidbits per se, about Jack Antonoff or anything like that if you're looking for that. But it's a great conversation about a guy who went through the ringer kind of, with the music industry and did a whole bunch of other stuff with his life and is now kind of living his own little dream up in the Catskills. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Matt Goldman. Matt, welcome to Dad Rocks.
Great to be here, Josh.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we've seen each other and talked. I think the last time we saw each other was at a Defending Champions show in like Brooklyn or something, and you were randomly there. I don't even know if you remember that, but it was I think it was a decade ago at maybe more.
Still I have so many fond memories of all the Essex County folks and the time. So you and your dad especially. So this is really cool. We were both there at a pivotal moment in music. So
yeah, you more so than me with my band not being in that punk scene, but we'll get into that a little later. So you're up in the Catskills now, and has the store, that's brand new. Were you guys affected a lot by that massive snowstorm that just hit recently?
Oh yeah, we had to shut down. We only lost one day. We're closed Monday, Tuesdays anyway. So the storm hit like Sunday, right? So we closed Sunday. There was no business being open, but yeah, it's incredible having this store. It's a bookstore, it's a bar, and it's an event space. We have live music, we have authors. It's a real cultural hub. So much fun, but yeah, the weather, the weather this winter's been a little aggressive.
Yeah. And so when did you actually move up there, and what was the impetus to do so?
Every time someone asks me about years or months or dates, I'm embarrassed to say that I used to be a history teacher, but I'm so terrible with months and dates. I mean, we opened up, last October, and we moved up full time, I guess it was 2 summers ago. To open up the shop. We had bought a house in Ellenville maybe 4 years ago in COVID. And we loved it so much. We really fell in love with it. My son really enjoyed it. We were living in Clinton Hill, Brooklyn at the time. We were on the 12th floor.
Oh, jeez.
You're on the elevator just to walk outside for 5 minutes. And I think the contrast between what we had in Ellenville, the ability just to open your front door, build forts in the backyard and, little tree houses for animals compared to Brooklyn. It won out.
Yeah. And, the fact that you're in Ellenville brings me back to the thought of the Borscht Belt where the Nevele was, where our families did vacation once, I think at least once up there together, and the Falls View and all these other all-inclusives that are, I don't even know if any are up there anymore. So I know that the area was trying to have some sort of economic upturn with trying to get the casino up there a while ago. That didn't happen. But how is it? What is it like up there?
Yeah, so one of the things, obviously the history was a big draw for me when we initially moved up there. Like your family, my grandparents and my parents spent a lot of time up there. There is a really notable revival happening in the area. There's, Ellenville has hit hard times when the Nevele went under. The factories went under in the 80s and 90s. Deindustrialization hit them hard. But what you see happening in Ellenville is also happening in other areas across the country now. During COVID, the advent, with Wi-Fi, it's allowing people who couldn't necessarily make a living, through industrial means, like with your physical presence in a shop. You've got a lot of folks buying homes because it's affordable and working remotely. So there's a good heart, a really good heart of businesses there that have existed through all the hard times. And there's a lot of new energy also kind of coming in. We got a record shop, we got a cool provision sandwich shop. The Borscht Belt Museum just opened up, a very cool museum, punches far above its weight. And so, people my age, our age, are finding themselves a little cramped in the city or in Oradell. And making the move upstate where the air is clean and the life is good.
Yeah. So, what gave you the idea to make this bookstore, cafe, bar, whatever? Where did that come from?
Yeah, it came from everything that I had done before. Honestly, a lot of folks ask, man, this is like a real pivot for you, and I'm like, not really. I was just trying to tie together a lot of the loves and interests that I have had. I mean, whether I was, in a pop punk band in the 90s, a touring band, later a history teacher, I've always been trying to, kind of use art, use music to figure out what we're all doing here. That's what the New Jersey punk scene was about for me. It was about building a community at a young age. And to create a space that kind of believes in the power of stories, that believes in the power of art to bind us together, it all just made a ton of sense. And of course, it's also a bar. I really enjoy drinking. I've made a lot of great friends across the bar, over the years. And so I think combining the books with the bar, with a music space, it was a way for me to try to, tie these threads together in one project that was wholly mine.
And is your wife working there too, or does she have
No,
a
she has a
job,
real
or-
job. She has a real job. Yeah, she's an attorney. She's an attorney in the city. And I will say we were living in Ellenville for a while, but she was remote. But then, so many people, her firm called her back in, so we had to move over the mountain, over the beautiful Shawangunk Ridge, and now we're in New Paltz because she can get to to Poughkeepsie to get on the train.
Gotcha. So you guys are the cafe is in Ellenville, and you guys are in New Paltz now, which is I actually spent, a couple buddies and I went. We rented a house in New Paltz for a couple nights for our 40th birthday, and hung out there. And I mean it's an interesting college town and you got the Mohonk Mountain right there as well. And but it's a really cool place, and you're close enough to the Metro North that you can hop on. So
yeah, we get. I feel like we have the benefits of a lot of worlds. We've got the mountains. My son and I say good morning to the mountain every day on the way to school. But yeah, if we want to get to the city, which I never want to do, I swear I haven't been back in the city since I left. I don't miss it at all. But we got Kingston. We got great bands that come through Kingston, cool venues, good food. So yeah, I'm really happy here.
Yeah. That's awesome. And so, I was going to ask, but you said it before that your son made the transition really well. Like he transitioned from city living to, I guess, country, but it's not country because now you're in New Paltz. But I guess initially in Ellenville it was a more rural setting.
Yeah.
And what did you see with him? How his growth changed because of being in a more outdoor situation?
So I don't want to say that he's like mellowed out because he's 5 and like no 5-year-old mellows out, But I do think being outside more for him has been just an unvarnished good. I think we build forts, man. Nice. We've got 6 acres here, and
that's awesome.
My bar manager bought him this like fort building book from the 80s, and we've started to go at it. It's winter now, so we're just seeing how our big fort holds up. But he just loves going outside. He loves looking under rocks. He loves comparing leaves. He loves looking for signs of spring and signs of fall. So those are all things that didn't really appear when we were in Brooklyn, and I think it's mellowed him out a little bit.
Now is he old enough for kindergarten, or is he still in preschool?
Yeah, he's in kindergarten, and he loves school. He loves reading. He has so many questions about life. He's at a Montessori school now, which has been good for him. But we're very excited to put him in a public school next year.
And I was going to ask if he was in the public school. Initially, I was thinking you guys were in Ellenville, which I don't know if how the public schools work up there, if it's more local control or if it is like a countywide regional thing. But being in more of a rural setting, it can be a little dicey with the public schools and the funding and everything. But based on where you are and what you were saying before, I would assume there's a lot of new families coming up and things are probably, making an uptick in the area of education.
Yeah, but I will say Ellenville gets a really bad rap with the numbers. As a teacher, we know that a lot of things go into these test numbers, but I've gotten to know so many of the middle school, high school, and elementary teachers, a lot of the students, and like uniformly, the teachers are incredibly hardworking, devoted.
Oh yeah.
So, I always got to put that out there that the numbers tell one story, but there's a lot of great work being done in the Ellenville public schools.
Absolutely, and as someone who worked in a Title I school for 8.5 years and saw what kind of caliber teacher we have or had there, and they still have there, and what they had to do to get the students up and to a certain standard. I tell people all the time, when you go to a town that has like, is supposed to be a great town for education, a lot of it comes because of the parents and, the wealth that's happening at home, and the fact that they're going to support their kids no matter what. And the districts that overperform, those are where, the really good teachers are, because that's
one of the big, one of the big places of employment in Ellenville is the prison. And one of the things that the Ulster County Sheriff told me just a few weeks ago, he's like, one of the reasons we have some challenges is because everyone serving time there is on a 10, 15-year stint, and so they bring their families with them. And these are families that are not rooted, they know that they're only here for a moment, and the kids are experiencing tremendous loss.
Trauma, yeah. Yeah.
What do you teach now, Josh?
So I teach computer science. I teach middle school computer science. I was an elementary school teacher initially, then I was a computer teacher for K-8 school, and now I'm middle school computer science. So it's
middle school. Middle school.
And
Did you have to pull the 6/7s off the keyboard?
Believe me, it was one of those things where you had to like kind of go into it head first and basically like overdo it to kind of make them stop doing it and like kind of overreact. But my son was also into it and doing like 6, 7, 41, all that stuff, because he's getting it from the older kids. But yeah, it was interesting because I never thought I wanted to be a middle school teacher. I always avoided like subbing in the middle school. Never thought. And once I got to the K-8 school and started dealing with those kids and working at sleepaway camps with that age group, I realized I like the older kids more than I enjoyed teaching the younger kids, just because I could reach a higher level with them and kind of be at that point where having a teacher for some of these kids who need like, that mentor type deal, that it was a perfect age for that. And
yeah, dude, I loved middle school's great. Like I was just supposed to do high school, and then at this last school I was at, they slotted me in at middle school as we were founding the school because we didn't have high school, and I absolutely fell in love. I think middle school students are so much fun to teach because if you can get them to believe in something, like a 12, 13, 14-year-old will go to the mat for you, right? If you can convince them that you are genuine and you're trying to offer them something cool, you've got them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's interesting because I was tasked to run the this new esports team that we had the last few years. And I've seen how some kids have really come out of their shell and taken like leadership roles, like in like being leaders on the team and working with younger kids. And like, it's just been really cool to see at that level because, I had a very traumatic middle school experience when I was younger, but I can use that now to help the kids, who need that like kind of encouragement to kind of to get through it. But so getting back to your son, now that you have a young daughter as well, what was your son's reaction when your daughter was born?
I could my wife Erica and I could not have asked for a better son. He has been such a great older brother, like 99.9% of the time. I think like I can count on one hand the amount of times he said like, I don't want to be a big brother.
Yeah.
But he's been pretty excited about it the whole time. We prepared him, we read a couple of books with him. He's been a pretty great role model so far. I guess he didn't want to hold her at first, but that's
yeah.
He thought he could break her.
And how did you and your wife react to going from 1 to 2?
Yeah, so you have 2 kids.
Yeah.
Everyone tells you when you have 2, it's like a million more than 1, right? And you don't get it. I don't even remember what it was like having 1 kid at this point. I know I used to have some downtime, and I remember my friends.
I'm more tired just in general, like overall.
Yeah, but we're also older, right?
Yeah.
We're also older.
Yeah. But I feel like I definitely was less tired when I had 1 than with 2. But I think it's,
Yeah, my biggest thing is there's far less time to do reading, which is ironic because I run a bookstore and I still do read a lot. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Audiobooks, man. You gotta do
Oh yeah.
audiobooks.
Oh, dude, you don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell me. That's what I'm. That's my line, dude. But I think I was one of those people that, I always thought I would have kids. I always thought I'd have kids. But I was never like a planner. I was never like, okay, I'm gonna have 2 kids by the time I'm this age. I just always assumed it would happen, and it took a while. Right, my son was born when I was like 38, I think. Not really good at math, history teacher. 37, 38, and I love the way that kids force you to not ask the hard questions about life. All of the things that we torture. I feel like as a musician, I demanded a lot from myself. I wanted to live a very worthy life, and I wanted to make art that honestly made myself worthy of the skin that I was in. And I was really, really hard on myself, especially when it came to the creative output. Having kids definitely helped with that because I don't have time for it. I don't have time for that anymore. Like we've got a mission, we've got a goal, and mostly it's about getting them fed and out the door to school every morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's been a nice surprise.
We have the battle with our older one who is he has ADHD, so it's almost like dealing with twice the amount of craziness because we have to get him focused and get him out the door on time, and we have to deal with it's just, it's a lot, and the lack of time. I mean, just doing this podcast, I try to do it once a month, and then now it's like whenever I can, and if I'm lucky to get once every 2 months out, it's great. It is what it is, but like. Yeah, you just have less time to do things. My wife and I try to watch like some TV at night, and we have 20 minutes to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. We're always behind in the culture. We've seen one movie in the last 2 years. But it's all good. I when some of my friends are like still debating whether or not to have kids, and the one thing I always say is like, look, are you just a little bit tired with the way that your life is going? Like, are you okay letting some things go? Because I feel like that's really the key question,
Right.
And I was okay with that, and I still am okay with that, and that's why one of the many reasons I love where I am.
Absolutely. Right now. So, do your kids like music?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Although in ways that I wasn't, prepared for. I thought that they would like all of my music.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Right, Josh?
Yeah. Yeah, you're like, I believe me. I tried to force feed my son the Beatles and other stuff, and get them. And he took to some things, but now it's like, no, it's he like they like certain things. And that's
right,
it.
but there's you're still, we're just planting the seeds. Where I don't have to tell you. I know you are the living embodiment of a father who planted the seeds.
Yes.
Yeah. My kids love music. My daughter is 16 months old, and I don't know why this ended up being her favorite song, okay? But anytime I put this song on, it commences the dance party. We do a lot of dance parties in my house.
Okay. Yeah, they're great.
Most mornings, most nights, we're doing dance parties. So my daughter, I don't know if you remember the absolute banger from the 90s, Boom, Boom, Boom by the Venga Boys.
Oh, yeah, man.
Oh, it's
boom,
so good.
Boom, boom. I want you in my room. Da, 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 da. Yeah, that one. Yeah.
So good. So good. So my daughter lights up. She spins around. She's doing these jumps. So that's primarily how my daughter has experienced or shows her love for music is through dance. And my son has gone through many, many phases. He was a huge Ramones guy when he was 3 or 4. Nice. Yeah, I had to tell him what the KKK was very early because of the KKK took my baby away.
Yeah.
He mentioned it at school once, and then I remember I had to tell him after I spoke with one of his teachers who, I'd worked with, so it wasn't a problem. But I was like, Bud, the KKK is just like, these are grown-up things, so we can listen to it in the car, but right now it's not something you want to talk about with your friends at school. So yeah, he was a big Ramones guy for a while, still into Weezer. Nice. He's digging Imagine Dragons now, but he likes this guy Mozart. Have you ever heard of Mozart?
No.
Some people know him as Mozart, but to him it's Mozart. So he's also liking some Mozart.
Nice.
Yeah, he started playing violin at school. He went to a little drum class.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're just seeing what sticks, and
Yeah.
so far nothing really, but there's seeds, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to ask if he was taking any instruments. I mean, that's one thing I feel like I've failed my son at because we just haven't had time, and it's I don't know how we fit in our schedule, but I show him some stuff at home. He also doesn't like really taking lessons. He likes to do it. He's like, no, I'm just going to do it myself. Like when he's on the piano, and so. But yeah, that's awesome about that. And I was going to ask, like, do they listen to any like kids music, and what your thoughts on that are if they do?
Such a great question. Well, can you lead it with, tell me your thoughts on kids music, because I'm sure you've had a lot of thought, had a lot of time to think. And
I mean, it was interesting because
you talked to the lead singer from the Presidents of the United States of America,
Casper Baby Pants. Yeah.
Great stuff.
So, and I think the thing is that for me, like, growing up with the parents that I did, there was kids music, but it was like always folky, kind of like, Raffi types of thing, very competent musical music. And it was for kids, but it was also like good music. And there's so much like slop out there that, it's hard to weed through sometimes and try, especially like, if you have a playlist on Spotify or Apple Music somewhere, and it's just like they throw this on with the kids' music, and it's very hard to kind of wade through it sometimes, and you have to kind of be the gatekeeper. And I feel like I want my kid to listen to, at least have that foundation, at least in the back of their head when they're very impressionable, to hear good music. And of course, we had to battle through some things, in my mind, battling through, like, he was into Spidey and Friends for a while, so listening to all those songs. Granted, they are from the guy from Fall Out Boy, so it's not.
Yes, I heard about that recently.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not terrible, but then he wants to hear certain songs over and over. He wanted to hear certain songs over and over again. But like Casper Baby Pants was definitely one of the big ones. We always would throw Raffi, Sesame Street stuff in, and some of that stuff can be, whatever. But for me, it's like, is the music catchy for them? Is it competent? Is it good quality music? And there's a lot of stuff out there, and I mean personally, it's just that's the way I see it. And a great doc to see in I just watched it on HBO. They have a doc on. It's called If You're Happy and You Know It, and it's about kids music, and it has Laurie Berkner on there. It has Chris Ballou, Casper Baby Pants. It has the guy who originally put out the Baby Shark song before it got taken over by Ping Fong and stuff like that. So it's very interesting. I'm surprised they didn't get the Yo Gabba Gabba people on there, but that's my thoughts on it, at least.
Yeah, I mean, from the get-go, like, if I were to look at my playlists that I had for my son when he was in the womb and when my daughter was in the womb, and like their first month playlists, like, it's not kids music, but it's music that I think translates well for kids. Like Belle and Sebastian, Tiger Milk, and If You're Feeling Sinister were huge records for when my son was little. Also, Owen, this guy is Mike Kinsella. He used to play with his brother in a bunch of like early emo bands in the Midwest. He has a band called Owen, and like their records are just really gentle and soft. They have a ton of curse words, but the music is really gentle and soft. So I guess I'd say I like you. I wanted my kids to listen to appropriate music, minus the curse words. But that was done with like sincerity and intention, and not necessarily just for consumption, right? Which is what a lot of kids music, like the disposable kids music, is. Although I also don't want to like hate on the stuff that they enjoy. I don't want to be the dad. So there's been a little bit of Coco Melon. I'm not going to deny that. And my brother and I may or may not have recorded some Coco Melon songs as punk rock songs when we were drinking Budweisers in a rehearsal studio. I don't know. We may or may not have done that. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I guess that's my take.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, and do you play around the house? Do you pick up the guitar, play on the piano at all, or
for I can't play the piano.
Okay, but do they
Yeah,
do they
just guitar.
like you playing guitar? Because I know when I play, sometimes I'll pick it up and just play, or even play the drums. They'll yell at me to stop sometimes, or they'll come over and try to
Yeah.
play it and take it away from me. So I didn't know if you had a similar situation.
When my daughter was young, like when she was like 3, 4, 5 months, me strumming the guitar, I could strum for like 45 minutes and she would just stay laser focused and silent the whole
awesome.
time. Yeah, and I really thought that she was going to be the one to let me play to her, right? No. None of my kids want me to play the guitar. My daughter wants to stand on my guitar case, right? She'll point at it so I can pull it out and she could stand on it. But if I'm playing it, my son is just like whacking the strings, which I'll allow with my cheapy guitar. And yeah, my daughter would just rather stand on the body of the guitar or the case.
Yeah. No, it's funny because I played a gig for the first time in a while, and it was like
Good
a
for you.
library. Yeah, oh yeah, it's with it's a local cover band, a bunch of like older people who needed a new drummer, and I was like, it's low key, it's near my house. I just been looking to play with people for a while since the guys I was in a cover band with, they've moved around. We haven't played a lot, been able to play because just life got in the way, and I just needed something. And I was playing at like a local library, and so I brought the family. My older son David, he was able to sit there with my mom the whole time. He was enjoying it. My younger son Daniel was just like, I can't even like sit here for more than 4 songs. He wanted to get out, and took my wife with him, and he just couldn't stand still. Even though he likes music and he'll sit in the car and listen to it, I think it was just too much for him to sit still and everything.
It's hard not to be offended, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, but he's 3, so I can't really get too upset.
Yeah. I get.
It's definitely one of those things that because I still have fond memories of being into it when my dad played music and I wanted to play music with him. And I think that's been one of the hard things for me, is like having, trying to get over the fact that my son is not going to, or my sons are not going to have the same childhood as I did, and not be the same person as me. And that was something like that I think I learned pretty early, because I tried to force things that musically at least, that weren't going.
When did you say your dad bought you your first drum set? How old are you?
So I started playing in 4th grade, so I was 9. He told me, you have to play for a year and make sure you're doing this. And then he bought it when I was 10. Yeah.
All right, so you still got some time. All hope is not lost.
But the difference is that I think we'll see what happens with my older son. He doesn't have the innate rhythm that I was blessed with, and so we'll see what happens. But he's definitely into it. I think he might be a front man if he ever does perform. He's definitely got the stage presence, and he's got the self-confidence to do that. He's already performed in front of like family and stuff like that, making up songs. So yeah. I think that's where we're going with that.
It is funny. I mean, it's so trite how we always thought we wouldn't be like our parents, that we wouldn't try to make our kids like us, right? But I understand.
I think it's just like, I had such a, you probably feel this too. It's like you have such a strong connection with some of the things that bonded you to your parents, and it's like, for me, music was a lot of that, and so it's like I wanted to pass that on to my son, but it seems like there's definitely those things, but he's gonna have a different experience. And I think sometimes, in general, I always had a trouble not forcing something to happen that I wanted to happen, and I've learned to kind of let things go a lot more, especially with my kids.
That seems like you're a great dad, then.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
You're reading the books.
No books. I'm just living and reflecting and doing a lot of therapy. So it's.
Yeah, well, that's a lot, man. That's a lot.
Yeah. What has been one of your biggest challenges as a parent so far?
Honestly, I feel like having the capacity to take a breath when I can feel my like today my son was home from school, right? And I was with him all morning and all afternoon. And from like 11 to 4 o'clock, I don't think he stopped eating, you know? And it's not like he had one big meal, right?
Yeah.
I made him a really nice snack, some carrots, some hummus, some olives, a cheese stick, and like a nice hearty snack. And then 20 minutes later, he's like, Dad, I'm hungry. And I'm like really trying hard to get my books done. And so I make him a snack. And then 30 minutes later, Dad, I'm hungry. And I can feel it rising, and
Yeah.
the biggest challenge, and I think I'm winning, I do think I'm getting better, is taking the breath and pushing it down and speaking with an even tone, and just always centering the love at moments when it feels impossible. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Oh no, that's me. That's like my biggest problem is my own like anxiety and control issues come forward, and like it's just pointed right at my son rather than just being like chilling out. Like I have to take a breath. Sometimes my wife has to like be like, you need to step away for a second, and that's
Yeah.
been my biggest challenge, especially with a son who doesn't follow directions very well because it's his
Yeah.
brain is just not wired to do that, and that has definitely been my biggest challenge too, is being able to keep your
Well,
cool sometimes.
and you're like, you want to speak to your kid, and you're like, no, 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 I'm not one of those parents. I'm not like one of those dads. I'm like the cool dad. Like, come on, like you shouldn't resist me. I'm like the cool dad.
No, and honestly, like I told a buddy of mine, I was like, we were at his house for Christmas Eve, another Jewish family, so it's like we were getting Chinese food and everything like that, and I was watching it, and their son was causing a lot of trouble, but they were both just like super calm. And then we went skiing like a few days later, and I told him, I said, I was just like in awe of you. He's like, dude, you have no idea how hard I was like I was just like, it was a struggle to do this like all of the time. And,
Yeah.
it's part, I think back to, you reflect on your parents. My dad was a big yeller. I mean, he wasn't a big punisher or anything like that. But then you
Right.
think back to their parents and what they did, and they don't, like all the stress and everything that they deal with, and they didn't, we at least have the knowledge of how to handle it and like,
Right.
doing stuff.
Right. Their parents grew up in World War II. Some of them lived through the Great Depression. I mean,
Holocaust and stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah, these were not like, let's take an extra deep breath
Right.
and try to think about our long-term goals for our child before we open our mouth kind of parents.
Right. But then, it passes on. And it takes a couple generations to understand, like, and learn sometimes of like, the learned behaviors need to kind of, chill out a little bit.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I mean, it makes me feel good knowing that that you're struggling with the same thing, but it doesn't feel unnatural. It's hard. It's hard work.
Yeah. And so what has been one of the coolest moments that you've experienced as a parent so far?
Boy, these are not small questions. One of the coolest moments.
I mean, I'm sure there's a ton. Just pick one.
Yeah. Like I'm trying to pick like the right one.
There's no right answer. Your kids aren't going to listen to this, so it's no big deal. Just pick one that's one of your faves.
Well, I mean, I went snowboarding with my son like 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
It's so hard to do, right? Like, so do you ski? Do you snowboard?
Yeah, I ski. Took my took my son skiing a couple times last year. He loved it. And then we rented him skis. We only gone a couple times. We're hopefully gonna go this weekend, but we don't have the mountains like you guys do close by. But
Right.
yeah, but it's it's definitely a great experience to have that.
Anyway, we got out on the mountain and it was hard. It was a long day just to get there to rent the equipment. And we got up on the mountain, and I've taught a few people how to snowboard, but teaching a 5-year-old is different. I don't know, just holding his hands as he like pushed the snow away and kind of listened to me and trusted me. That was a pretty top one. I know it was very recent, but
No.
there aren't. I feel like as a parent, there aren't like big aha moments. It's just a series of, if you're kind of sensitive to the moment, there's just a lot of really, really, really great small moments.
Absolutely.
A lot of really great small moments. Anytime my son plays with his sister in a joyful, like an honestly joyful way, it's awesome.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know how much they fight, but my boys fight a lot, and so when they're actually playing together and like working together and like collaborating or we're just hanging out, it's like the coolest thing. It's like this is what you want. It's like what you want your kids to have. It's like why you why you have sometimes people they choose why they have two or more, because they want that kind of relationship for their kids.
Was your relationship with your brother important when you decided to have another kid? Because it really was for me.
My brother and I we are two totally different people, and I think growing up we did a lot together, and then kind of we both went kind of our separate paths. We were just I think for me a lot, my anxiety and lack of self-confidence in certain areas definitely hindered things, and took me down a different social path, whereas my brother was much more self-confident, willing to try things, and so it was just like, we kind of diverged. We never had issues, but we were just two totally different people. And then, but as we got older, our relationship definitely got a little tighter, and it was, when our father passed away, that was a thing, but I was in college, he was in high school, and I was away, and then when he started doing the band, and his band got signed, and before they got signed, they were touring everywhere. We didn't really have a lot of togetherness time. But now with our kids, we've definitely made it more of a point to try to get our kids together, because he's in North Caldwell, and
no way.
Yeah. So, but having just that bond, and like I remember saying at his wedding in the speech, I said, we always always were there for each other. Like I made the joke, like when I needed to move back from Kansas after grad school, he flew out and helped me move back, and then when he needed to be picked up from a party that was getting busted, I drove over and picked him up from the party. So that I know you and your brother are super close. So, but yeah, but still having him was an amazing thing to have someone to be with. And I remember great moments with him growing up.
Cool. Yeah. I wanted my son to have, I feel so strongly about the relationship I have with my brother. And I wanted him to have a buddy, and Erica grew up with an older brother and a younger brother. And so that was always important to her. So I love that gift that we can give our kids.
Will you wake the love that sleeps inside? Dream that she had never died. Wipe that tear, but you don't know why. Boy, you're pretty, but you're just not for me. And better love I do not see.
Before you were a father, you were an uncle, and your brother has a son. And, what they went through, your sister-in-law had a battle with cystic fibrosis. She had a lung transplant and then ultimately passed away. Dealing with that, how are you as an uncle, in this case, able to help navigate your nephew dealing with such a loss?
Ooh. I really just tried to show him how much I tried to be present. I tried to show him how much love I had for him. yeah, there's no way, there's no good way through that, you know. But yeah, a lot of that did happen before my son was born. My son was born when Andrea passed away, but he was very young. Yeah, it was really about, I saw my goal, my mission as being as present as possible and being just listening to, not just like putting things on him, telling him how to feel, just trying to be
Just
trying to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I having been on the receiving side, granted I was much older than your nephew, but like that's all you kind of need is just to know people are there when something like that happens. And obviously you probably did the same for your brother, who, you know, you can't even imagine what he had to go through. And yeah, it's just one of those things. And did you go down to Florida a lot to spend time with him?
Yeah, I was down as much as I could. And I remember we had teacher trainings in the summer when things went south, and I remember I went down to live with my brother, and I got to do it all remotely. My school was really great at being flexible with me. And I think my father, since this is called Dad Rocks, you know, I think he totally rocked as a dad, ushering, shepherding his son through it, you know, all of the nighttime conversations, and many of which I never knew what was spoken about, but I knew that he was always sleeping in the room and that these were hour-long conversations, and he treated him like, not like someone incapable of understanding, you know.
Yeah.
I think he honored his feelings, and he was able to maturely speak to him about it in a way that has helped him continue to work through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, you also, I'm gleaning all this from Facebook, by the way. But like you went on a couple, you went on a few trips with them as well. Right? With your brother and nephew. I saw you went to like Glacier National Park and did some backpacking or, you know, at least nature stuff. And then
it was glamping. It was glamping.
But still, you know, but what was that experience like? I mean, granted, your son was born at that time, but like having that experience and that connection with your nephew during this time.
Yeah, well, the genesis of that trip, it was something that Adam and Andrea had always talked about doing. And so to be able to do it, you know, not with her, but with Bryce, it was indescribable. Have you been out? I'm sure you've been out to some of the national parks.
Yeah.
Have you been to Glacier?
Yeah, it was 1995, so I don't 96 maybe. I don't remember a lot. I do remember it was absolutely gorgeous out there. I just remember that, and the speed limit was 70. It was two big things I remember. But yeah, we did the Waterton Glacier National Park thing.
Cool.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it was just stunning beyond description. And I'd spent, 5 years on the road. I'd seen just about every state besides North and South Dakota. Missed the Badlands. Pretty bummed about that.
Oh, I camped out there once. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
sick. Yeah, I'll get out there one day. But still, with everything I had seen, I was still speechless with the scenery. And the coolest thing, although it wasn't cool at the time, was how hard it was. My nephew was maybe 7, maybe 8. We were going on these 8-mile, 9-mile hikes. And there was one that we did that Bryce was getting. He was getting pretty cranky, and I don't blame him. It was hot. It was long. And this is one of my favorite memories, and it wasn't at the time. This butterfly landed on my hood, and I was also pretty annoyed. It wasn't just him, I was cranky, and Bryce and my brother would not stop making fun of me. I forget it. I think they saw that I was really annoyed about the butterfly, and they both kept poking me and poking me and poking me. It's so funny because I remember being genuinely upset at the two of them. because this is like 6 hours into a hike, and I'm like,
you're
can we
probably
just walk
hungry,
back?
tired.
I'm out of water.
Yeah.
But the overarching memory is of pushing all of ourselves beyond what we thought we were capable of, and then always finding the greatest peak or a sight that we couldn't describe together, and that's so special for my brother and me and my nephew. It's super special.
Yeah, and through that whole experience, from your, just the journey that your brother and sister-in-law and your nephew had to go through, and then after her passing, and then these trips and everything, and the time you spent with them, how do you think it prepared you for your role as a parent?
Man, these are not softball questions, Josh. I was like, is he going to ask me about steel trains? Is he going to ask me about like?
I'm getting there. Don't worry about that.
Oh, man.
Look, man, these experiences are important for people to hear, and it's one of these things that you don't think of, and I try to at least.
Yeah. I'll tell you. I don't think I have always been sensitive to the preciousness of our existence. I don't think I was sensitive as a teenager. I don't think I was particularly sensitive in my 20s or 30s. I think the fragility is just very apparent to me, and that's also, some of the great literature that I've been attracted to in the last 2 or 3 years. I think if you can live with the fragility, if you can accept it, if you can stare at it, if you can know it, and then go about your day and wake up your son in the morning and make him a bowl of Cheerios, that bowl of Cheerios is not just a bowl of Cheerios. Like, if you're living with the fragility, you can kind of have an appreciation for these small moments that are pretty transcendent, and to live with that, also with the annoyance level and the yelling. Yeah. These things all exist at the same time, but I would say that it sadly brought me closer to the fragility and the understanding that all of this could be over so quickly, so quickly. So that's what I'd say I carry around. It's totally heavy, but it is also right. What's the Wilco song? What's the Jeff Tweedy? You got to learn how to die if you want to be alive.
Yeah.
Like
which song that is.
At least sitting with it, confronting it, I think makes me see my kids every morning a little bit differently.
Yeah. I know for me, I was like, I always, when they were younger, I would like, I always was like take this moment in, like there was a moment recently, we were downstairs listening to, I don't know, the music from, the Pigeon, we were listening to some Mo Willems like inspired musical or something, and we were both of my boys were sitting on the couch with me, and both of them were like leaning up against me, and they were just listening to we were listening to music together, and I was like, yeah, you got to take this in, and like this is a moment where, this doesn't happen often, so take it in, and like this is what it's all about. Is this
totally? The snuggles, man.
Yeah. So anyway, we're gonna shift gears now to your music that you were, thinking about. So growing up, we knew each other. We went to nursery school together. Our parents were friends, or friendly or whatever. And but I always
your
knew
dad was my chiropractor.
Oh yes, he was everyone's chiropractor at the synagogue. He was like everyone's chiropractor. And growing up, I knew you as being a great athlete. We played Kadima basketball together. You were playing baseball, basketball, doing all this stuff. I think you played. Did you do the Maccabi games too? Right? Didn't you do the Maccabi?
Yeah,
games?
I don't think I got on the court.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I got on the court.
But I knew you as a great athlete, and I remember, but during that time, especially preteens, I never knew you were into music, and then suddenly there you are as a musician. So when did you actually start playing music, and what was your first instrument?
First of all, it's very nice of you to call me a good athlete. That I will
You
tell
were
my
growing
son-
up, man.
I will tell my son that he got 1 trophy for t-ball, and he's like, "How many trophies do you have, Dad?" And I was
Oh, we
like,
won
"Well,
the Kadima League in
Yeah.
when we were in 7th or 8th grade or something like that.
Yeah, but he was like, "But you don't have any trophies here. I'm the only one here with trophies." Sorry. So your question was, what was that transition?
When did you start playing music, and what was your first instrument?
Oh, guitar. Actually, I started when I was 6, and I played acoustic guitar, like a classical guitar, and I quit. I remember my instructor tried to teach me a Beach Boys song, and it was like too hard. My hand couldn't fit around the guitar. Totally quit, and didn't pick it up again until I was 13. And it was a red Samick that I got for my bar mitzvah. And I started taking lessons at there was like the Caldwell Music Shop that was.
On Bluefield Ave. Yep, I know exactly.
Yeah,
what you're talking
Bloomfield
about.
Ave, right by Passaic.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, not by Passaic. What's wrong with me?
It was by it was by the synagogue. It was near Central, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, Central. Sorry. Yeah. Bloomfield and Central. Yeah. And I don't know what made me want to do it. I felt the need to do it, and I learned a lot of No Effects songs. I learned a couple of I remember like Bush's Glycerin was a pretty big one for me. That might have been the first one I ever learned, actually.
Very popular song.
Yeah, and that would, God, what year do you think that was? Like 95?
Yeah, it was
96?
95, 96, 97.
Well, that would
something
make
like that.
sense, right? I was 13.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was it for me. I started writing songs immediately. There was a guy in my school that I went to, my Jewish school, Solomon Schechter, named Danny Fleisch, and we started a band called the Spotless Dirtballs.
Oh, nice.
It was just me and him, and we just wrote songs on like mixtapes that we'd taped over the holes and then pressed record, and we would just shoot them back to each other. We never played a show. Oh, we actually played a friend's bar mitzvah once.
Oh, wow. Cool.
But that was the very, very beginning.
Yeah. And growing up, if I remember correctly, when we did go to the Neville that one time, your dad, I think, won like tickets to Woodstock or something like that. I think he like bought an auction, or maybe it was someone else. Or
whoa, wait. We went to the Neville together.
Yeah.
Dude, that's nuts, because I've also, I had gone with my so that was the second time. I knew that I had gone 2 times.
Yeah.
I didn't realize.
Yeah, I think it was just our 2 families. I remember distinctly playing racquetball with you, I think once.
Oh my
twice.
God.
But I remember your
amazing.
dad. I remember. I think it was your dad, because they had those auctions, and I think he won. Like he
won Woodstock. I
tickets.
can't. I have a horrible memory. Yeah, he
I have a
won
great
like a
memory, so.
framed,
Yeah.
unripped Woodstock ticket. Man, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Wow.
So knowing that, I know your dad was into music, and
Yeah.
obviously, what were you listening to at home? What was your exposure to music at home?
Well, I don't want to break your heart, but my dad was not a Beatles guy. Okay, he was a Rolling Stones guy.
Hey,
Big
everyone
Rolling Stones guy.
likes what they like. It is what it is.
Obviously, growing up in Jersey, was and still am a very big Bruce Springsteen fan. I was absolutely raised on Bruce Springsteen. I
was not,
I
but
think
that's
you were not. I think the story is told that like I never listened to kids' music. I only listened to Bruce Springsteen. But yeah, I would say Bruce Springsteen, absolutely foremost in my memory. My mother was also a guitar player, although as soon as she grew her nails, yeah, I know, I never saw her play. She played when she was like a teenager. I have this beautiful picture of her playing when she was a nursery school teacher. But as soon as she got fake nails, she couldn't play anymore. And I've thought more than once, like, wow, you're gonna give up the guitar for fake nails? And so I like to think that she was still an inspiration, as well as my dad. My cousin's a great singer too. He sings in 613, the Jewish
really?
acapella group. Yeah, he
I know about
crushes it.
them,
He totally crushes it. But we never had any real music training or big family influences. Although we lost a lot of our family in the Holocaust, so maybe there was there was something back there.
Yeah. I forgot you did that walk. You did that walk in. Was it the Walk of the Living, right? Yeah, you did that.
No. Actually, I never went with a group. I went with my grandfather, right? Who
that's what it was. Okay.
who had survived, and I went with my father and my uncle, and that was it. I was 13. Incredibly traumatizing thing.
Yeah,
for a 13-year-old to experience. And then they at school they made me like stand up on a bema and like tell the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades about it. Meanwhile, I was in like 6th grade, and you know what it's like to be in 6th grade and the 8th graders. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of said Jewish day school, Solomon Schechter, which in West Orange, which you did. Before.
Birthplace of a lot of great musicians.
That's what I was going to say. Is that like during the late '90s, there were several punk bands that came out of that school, including your band, Random Task. What was that whole scene and community like? How did that happen? Like, weren't the Scott Dickers involved in that too?
Absolutely. Gabe. I mean, Josh Scott Dicker, hands down, one of my biggest influences as a teenager. And, Gabe Saporta was in Humble Beginnings too, also at Solomon Schechter. Evan, my buddy Evan Winokur and I, and Jeremiah Glazer, we talk about this. Like, we had a pretty non-existent music program, right? So it's almost like we were starved into becoming musicians. But it's pretty incredible that that tiny private school, I mean, I graduated with like 70 kids, 75 kids. Like, we had Random Task, and Ben went on to do Armor for Sleep and is still doing great things with Armor for Sleep. Evan has gone on to do wonderful things in music. Gabe did cool stuff with Cobra Starship. I don't know what explains it. I like to think that it was really the New Jersey pop punk scene that just coalesced in Essex County. And my buddy Josh Weinstein, who was in one of the bands, he does film, and he's actually considering pitching. I mean, he's done some major documentaries. He's pitching a documentary on the New Jersey pop punk scene.
Like, that was a scene that I was on the outside of because I was not into punk. I wasn't into that scene.
Right, you were a jazz guy, right?
Well, jazz and then piano rock, and like Ben Folds was a big influence in my band, which was down in New Providence mainly. Like, we were like the quirky kids. I kind of purposefully like stayed away from that scene. Though looking back, I wish we kind of went into that and been like the weird people, in terms of like music and stuff. But no, that scene was everywhere at my high school. The band Shorty was a couple guys that I went to high school with.
Derek.
Yeah, Derek Young and Mike Brower and Frank Cosarelli was the band. But then, I had on this show, I had Jeff Beck, who, not the Jeff Beck, but like Jeffrey Beck, who he owns East Side Mags in Montclair, the comic book shop, and he was.
Jeff, wait, was his sister Suzanne?
I think so.
Or Susan Beck?
Maybe. Yeah, I think that's possible. I met him through something else, but a bunch of my friends knew him. I think he was in a band with Mike Shapiro at one point.
Oh, wow.
Shapiro. But yeah, we were talking about the whole scene because I was like, it's an insane scene of all these bands that came out of New Jersey in that pop punk, era. And like, I feel like one of the things I kind of regret is not being part of that. You had the Miasmics, from Verona, the ska band, and even my brother's bands. They were playing all these VFW shows, and it was just looking back, it's like an amazing scene that you were a part of.
Yeah, it was a really heady scene, and sometimes when people ask me like, how'd you get into teaching? And I'd always say like punk rock. Punk rock was the first like genuine community, and I felt like it was a bunch of kids who were super naive at the time, all super white and genuinely male. Like, all the bands were male, which I didn't recognize at the time. But there was a very, very abiding belief in our capacity to build something that hadn't been built before, and we were open to new things, and it was really special. It really was.
Yeah. And what kind of support, did you get from your parents? I mean, was your brother playing a lot too?
So much.
Was he in a band?
A lot of support. Yeah, my brother formed a band. Like, once I went to college, I think my brother started playing drums, and he was in a band called Bridge to Terabithia. I I think that's what they were called. But my parents were always super supportive, and when I left college to join Steel Train, they were also enormously supportive. Yeah, I could not have asked for more. My mom gave us her minivan when we went on tour as 17-year-olds. Our high school let us go on tour. We went down to Florida, over to San Antonio, up to Chicago, and back as our internship. It was like a 1-month tour of 17-year-olds in my mom's minivan. I mean, it was very magical. So I guess that just about sums up the kind of support my parents gave me.
Yeah. And what did you? Were you guys? The Random Task was not on drive-through, right? You were not on drive-through.
No. We really thought we were gonna get signed with our last record. We were so close, but no, we never got signed.
So what kind of, when you were on that tour, your internship, were you just playing with random bands in the area, or were you like with another band the whole time?
So Heath Miller, who went on to do who was doing XSDB management at the time, it was the very beginning. Heath became a pretty iconic.
Yep, I remember that
promoter. Yeah, and I just saw he did something with the fella that did that first Fire Festival.
Yeah, I was looking him up. I was looking through the Wikipedias of some stuff and related to you, and I was like, oh, this guy is connected to that guy. That's a little odd. And now he owns a resort in Costa Rica or something like that.
Yeah, I mean. I give Heath a lot of credit, man. He had a great eye for talent, and he did a lot of stuff. He went on to manage all the booking at Webster Hall. So yeah, he was our manager, early on, and he booked the tours. He was on the road with us. A lot of fun, lot of fun. Some good memories. But yeah, he took care of all that for us.
Yeah, and were you sleeping on people's like floors, or did you have hotels, or yeah?
No hotels. I mean, we slept in the van. We slept on like the sides of the road sometimes. And there's this famous story that Evan Winokur loves to tell about, Heath like reclining my mother, the passenger seat, and just putting his his feet up on his very smelly socks up on the dashboard. Yeah, it was so unglamorous.
Gosh.
It was as unglamorous as could possibly be. But, when you're 17, it's remarkable. We met a lot of good friends, and then when I went to Boston University, ultimately I hung out, and the drummer who kind of joined the next reiteration of Random Task had been in one of those bands that we played with in Boston.
Gotcha. So did the band break up when you went to college?
No, we kind of kept it going as best we could. I mean, Ben, this was I think all of our first real heartbreaks. We didn't ever really have girlfriends. We just had bandmates. Mm-hmm. When Ben decided to leave Random Task right around senior year, it was totally devastating. And so we weren't sure that we would be able to continue, but we found a bunch of different drummers that could fill in, that could still play on recordings for us. And then we found, a pretty solid long-term drummer, this guy Josh Smith, who used to play in Kicked in the Head, who we toured with from Boston. Mm-hmm. So he was in the band for a while. So we did continue it, and then we changed names to the Room 9 Session when we wanted to try a slightly new sound. And I love those 2 recordings we did. 4 songs, phenomenal songs. It's like Evan wrote a song, Jeremiah wrote a song, I wrote a song. It's like Crosby, Stills, Nash, and we're singing on each other's songs,
nice.
And yet it's still a punk band. But it was a really cool collaboration.
You moved up to Boston. Were you involved in the music scene up there at all? Or were you coming back down to Jersey a lot?
No. I was kind of done with Jersey at that point. And also it felt like, I'm sure you can get a ton of opinions on this, but the Jersey scene, because of what we were talking about, because of all the bands that were then signing record labels, it really changed towards, the early 2000s. So yeah, I didn't come back to the Jersey scene. I mean, I definitely went to some shows when I was home from college the first year, but it's hard to answer that question because I guess we all felt a little bit lost. You know, the Boston scene was very different. The New England scene was very different. We made some good friends, but we were.
Did you all go to BU?
No, Jeremiah did. Evan went to Rutgers for a spell, but Evan would come up for rehearsals.
Wow.
Yeah, and we would play shows on weekends, so we still kept it going.
Gotcha. And then how did the whole Steel Train thing happen? I mean, did you know Jack Antonoff he didn't go to Schechter with you, right? Or did you know
No,
him
but
just
he
through-
was, I mean, he's from Bergen County, so him, kind of Evan and Ben and Daniel Silbert, these were all good friends from Schechter and from Random Task. They knew him for a long time. I only knew Jack through Outline, right? And they were like our brother band in the punk scene. We'd always play shows together. So I would say Evan and Ben and Daniel were much better friends with Jack from a very young age. And, I only met him probably when I was 15 or 16. And so that's how we became friends. Steel Train enters the picture. I really liked going to college. I loved some of the things I was learning freshman year, but I really felt like most of the students I was with were full of shit. A lot of them didn't care about what they were studying. I had a hard time finding friends. And then my house burnt down. Columbus Day, the beginning, right before sophomore year. And that was timed right around where Steel Train was looking to build out their band. They'd been a three-piece band. It was Jack, it was Scott, and Evan, the bass player from Random Task. And so they're looking to build out the band. My house had burned down. I was feeling pretty disillusioned with school. And I think it was Evan who reached out and said, like, would you have any interest? And I was like, sure, let's do this. And so I learned a bunch of songs. I took a bus down to New York City, and I met them all at an apartment that Jack was living in in the West Village, and we just jammed for a few hours, and it felt really great. And that was that.
Yeah, and I mean, you were in that band for what, 3, 4, 5 years, something like that?
Yeah, I think like almost 5 years.
And like, you guys did a bunch of national tours. You played Bonnaroo. Like, what was all that like?
Twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played Bonnaroo twice. No, I tell people I got a chance to do everything I ever dreamed of doing as a musician when I first got that red Samick guitar, you know? We toured about 9 or 10 months out of the year for most of the time. That was wild. Got to see just about every inch of this country, North Dakota and South Dakota aside. Made great friends all over, everywhere we went. Got to live in Northern California for a while, recording Twilight Tales from the Prairies of the Sun. And that was lovely, absolutely lovely. And it was tremendous. It was really tremendous. And then it just wasn't important enough to me anymore. I started to feel like there was a lot of smoke and mirrors, that it wasn't kind of like the truth-seeking medium that it had been for me when I was 15, 16, 17. There were other considerations you had to think about when appearing live, things to wear, things not to wear. I remember someone from my management team once asked me if I was really gonna wear that hat.
Was that the hat was that the hat that was in all the promotional
No,
pictures
that's
and
a
stuff?
great hat. No one questioned that hat. I went a little further in my love of hats. Man, that's good, Josh. That's some good research.
Yeah.
I loved it so much for a while, and then I just realized that the people I was performing in front of didn't see me for me anymore. And one of the things I used to love was meeting everybody after shows. I used to know what it was like to want to meet someone on stage and have them, tell me I was cool and that my interests were cool and to keep it up. And I loved having that opportunity to meet kids. And they were usually kids, right? Usually 15, 16. But the more I did it, the more I realized how they weren't seeing me, how they were just kind of like projecting things onto me. And it got kind of uncomfortable. And that combined with the fact that just only playing music with my life didn't feel right anymore.
Yeah.
And I'd spent enough time around people who I think, Jack has obviously number one, who was born to do it and only born to do it. It's the one thing that he was born to do. I wasn't that way. And it was really helpful to have that contrast, to be able to spend time with someone who operated on that level. It was clarifying. And so, we parted ways very, very amicably, as hard as it was for me. And for the friendships, because the friendships don't continue. But
it was interesting because I saw, and I think I messaged you when after this happened. I was out in University of Kansas, and I actually saw Fun and Steel Train perform at a place, in Lawrence, Kansas. And I talked to Evan. I didn't know him, but I was like, "Hey, you're bandmates with, Matt Goldman." He's like, "Oh yeah, man." He's like, we were, talking for a while and like connecting people and everything like that. But do you still talk to those
so Evan,
guys?
absolutely, Evan 100%. Like, Evan is a remarkable human being. It's like Evan has invisible strings connecting him to everybody in his life. You could not talk to Evan for months or for a year, and then when you speak on the phone, it's like no time has passed.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I would say of all those guys, it's really just Evan at this point. We've texted together with Jack when he does some crazy shit, but it's really just Evan that I have a connection with at this point. And I hope one day to reconnect with the drummer, Matthias, who lives in Stuttgart, Germany, because we were really tight. I've hung out with Scott maybe 2 years ago, but we don't really keep in contact.
Yeah. And so when you decided to leave the band, did you decide was that the point where you're like, I'm going back to school, I want to be a teacher, or did you take some time off and, what was that period?
No, so I will tell you that, I had a month or two home from tour one time towards the end of my tenure. And a buddy of mine, Rafi Cohen, a great author, he's got two really, really wonderful books that he's written. He asked me if I wanted to coach a middle school girls basketball team with him while I was home. And I said, hell yeah, let's do it. And I remember this moment. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was sitting on the back of, one of those yellow school buses on the awkward green, rubber seats. And I was helping this girl with a worksheet on climate change. And I remember thinking, like, maybe what I've been looking for on the stage through my songs, maybe I could find that in the classroom in a history setting. Because I was always a lunatic. Punk rock also introduced me to kind of the importance of stories and the importance of puncturing certain narratives, especially nationalist narratives. And so I thought maybe some of the things that I'd been chasing through art, through music, maybe I could do that through teaching history. And so I felt like I owed it to myself to give it a shot. And it was enormously gratifying. I went back to BU, 24-year-old undergraduate, took my professors out for beers, made great friends with them, allowed myself to be mentored by some wonderful historians, wrote an outstanding paper on the history of country music in northern suburban areas, presented it in Nashville.
Oh wow!
So I was still kind of thinking about music in new ways, doing research. And then I went to grad school for teaching and for American history, and just never looked back for about 15 years. I was so in love with teaching history, so deeply fulfilled. Teaching history, building connections with kids. I loved it so much.
And you were working in New York, right, the whole time? Or were you in
Yeah,
Boston
I worked in. I should have stayed in Boston, man. I was playing with the Fatal Flaw, playing with Glenn.
Yeah.
I wanted to stay in Boston. I really wanted to. I got one interview. I didn't get the job, and I just came back to New Jersey because there was a leave replacement job in Scotch Plains, and so I took it. Teaching 7th grade, and now these girls are like they're late 20s now.
Yeah.
They're like lawyers and stuff. So that was the first job in Scotch Plains. I taught at Solomon Schechter for like half a year, and then I moved to New York. I taught in East Flatbush for a spell in the public schools, and then I was in Red Hook at an independent school for about 10 years.
Nice. And so I was going to ask about the Fatal Flaw. So were you playing in the Fatal Flaw while you were back at school, or were
Yeah.
you playing like going back and forth between New York and Boston?
No. I was playing while I was in school, and it was such a healthy balance. You know, when I was with Steel Train, I loved it for a long time, but it just wasn't enough for me. Like, there were other parts of me that needed attention, and so being in school and playing with Joel and with Glenn, that was a really nice balance, and it was affirming of my decision ultimately. You know.
Yeah. And just for the record, for those of you who are listening, Glenn is Glenn Fan, who was twice a guest on this podcast, where he and I played in bands in middle school, and we were friends through middle school and high school, and still friends today. But yeah, he's just like that. I remember seeing that you played with him, and I was like, that is the craziest connection. Like, because you didn't know him, right? When you were in high school at all. Because he was playing in bands, but he was like in a different world, like because his dad was in New York and he was playing at like the Elbow Room, and so he had like ways to play, in those types of gigs. But he was not in the punk scene either. So that's just crazy that you guys connected, and you probably like immediately had like connections with all the different people you guys knew together.
Yes, yeah, it was really fun. Kind of thinking about all the folks we knew, and Glenn was a great backup singer and a really inventive guitar player.
Yeah,
I learned a good deal from Glenn. It was really fun to play with him.
Yeah, and so did it just when you moved down to New York and back to Jersey, was that when you kind of stopped playing with them?
Yeah, it was a total bummer. I would always like come out when they played, in New York, but yeah, that was done. And since then I haven't really joined a consistent band.
Yeah. And do you miss that?
Not as much as I thought I would. I miss rehearsals. I miss rehearsals and I miss recording. Those were my favorite things. Playing live is fun, but I loved rehearsing. I loved recording. And so I'm you know what it's like having young kids. It's hard to find the time, but there is a room in our house. It's our workout room. It's very large. We're gonna put up a wall. I'm gonna get a drum set. I've already brought up one of my half stacks. So
nice.
Yeah, the time is near when I'll get back to it.
And you have a stage to actually perform it in front of people. It's to showcase if you need to.
Very true.
But yeah,
very true.
No, I get it, man. It's like for a bunch for me, the rehearsals are the toughest, because I remember I had been playing in a couple of in a couple of bands in my 20s, or really just back in Jersey was like one band, and I was with one out in Kansas, and we actually recorded at the Get Up Kids studio a couple of times.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, but like I remember I started playing a couple like parties with guys I'd played with my band, played with, guys I was with in Zanzibar Scuff and some other gigs, and then I had been telling one lead singer, I was like, you should just do this constantly. Like, you're great at this, But then he decided, he was talking to our old piano player, and he's just like, oh, we're going to do a cover band. Like, if we're going to do this, let's do this like for real. And it was right before my son was born. And I was like stressing out because I was up in Bergen County. They were practicing down in Essex Fells, and the commute and all that. And all the hours ended up, it was great for the product we put out, but there was so much stress on me and my wife, and it was just like, we had one car at the time, and it's still the one thing, like when I rehearse with this new cover band or in this other random band that I'm playing with, I'm like, I'm here for like an hour, and that's it. Like, I can't do more than that, and if that's gonna be a problem, then I can't be in it, because I love doing it, but it's also like, I know I have responsibilities, with the family, and that was one thing I remember talking to Glenn about, was like finding time to be in bands. And he's like, you just have to like put the time in with your family, and then have that understanding with your wife and your partner that like, this is something that I need to do. And it's tough sometimes.
I have a feeling that I will get back to it. in a couple of years when my son's a little bit older, he's doing some things after school. Because right now I have between the store, which is so utterly consuming.
I can't even imagine what your brain is like thinking about running a business, having so much, having books, having food,
Dude,
having beverages. I don't even know.
I was just reviewing like the summer book releases right before I got on with you. So like,
yeah, I can't even imagine. So looking back on all of your experiences, touring, recording, being in that music world, what are some lessons that you hope to impart onto your kids when they're older?
All right. Well, one immediately comes to mind. I don't have to think too much about this. The first is I really don't want my kids going straight to college. I think the years that I spent on the road, when I came back to college as a 24-year-old freshman, I had so much perspective. So much maturity and passion, and I was driven. You don't have that when you go straight from high school to college. So number one, I think taking time to figure out what you might be interested in. Not figuring out who you want to be.
Yeah.
Because we're all still figuring that out. But I didn't expect how clarifying that experience was going to be in terms of like crossing things off the list for me and figuring out what was core to who I was. So I wasn't expecting any of that. And that was one of the gifts of being on the road for that time. So that would be one of the things. Ask me the question one more time so I can.
No, is there any lessons that you hope to impart on them as they get older?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great lesson. That one is like, I remember when I did Birthright, I remember talking to the soldiers, and they were like, "Yeah, we go to college after we, do our time in the military." And I'm like, that's actually not a really bad idea, because you're still getting the social interaction with other people. You're given that time to kind of figure things out while you're given responsibilities, which will help you mature. But then once you figure it out, kind of like have a better sense of yourself, you'll kind of know where you're going. And, I think that's smart.
The other thing, I guess, and this is really to my experience, so it may not be true for my kids' experience. I drink a lot of water.
It's okay. All good.
Like playing music for me was really self-gratifying. It was really gratifying. I want my kids to do stuff that is enormously gratifying to them. That is. That doesn't necessarily have to be about other people. That doesn't have to be about giving, but it is about what it is that they want deep down. But I guess my other big takeaway is that there was ultimately more to life than just artistic creation. And then I think that maybe that's just true for me. Maybe it's true for other people. But I would like them to feel a duty to something higher than just their own artistic gratification or need to self-express.
Yeah.
I don't know. How does that hit you as a dad? Like, of course you want your kids.
Well, I want them to do what they love to do. I mean, I always took my dad was like my idol, and I took everything he said as like, gospel. And he was like, I always wanted music to be like my passion. I never wanted to make it my work. And I always look at that, as a positive, because music, I don't want music to become something that I hate. And so I always was passionate about music. I always did music. I was in like every ensemble I could be in college, high school, wherever, still playing bands. But I also had, like you said, there's something else there. I knew I didn't have the drive to make it my life. And I remember when I worked at ADP for a bunch of summers, I remember realizing I don't want to work in a cubicle. I want to like see the end product of what I do. And I remember, like you said, when you worked as an assistant basketball coach, I was a drum teacher for a while, and I remember loving working with those kids and having the ability to kind of impart knowledge onto them and see them grow. And it's, for me, it's like you figure out who you are and just go with it. And there's going to be, and don't worry about whether you fail or not.
Yeah, and that's certainly closer to what I meant. I mean, there are people who are born only to make art, and I don't think if my children, if that's the way that they end up, if that's who they are, then that's who they are.
Say something good. Don't you think that by now I really would if I could? And though you've seen better days, I wouldn't spare you the truth, and I won't damn you with praise. Oh, 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 oh. Oh, 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 oh. I'm singing for you now.
At the end of every episode, I ask the same question to every one of my guests. And they're usually not prepared for this. Maybe you are, because you said you listened to a couple of episodes. So what have you been listening to lately? Like, give me 3 songs, artists, whatever. It doesn't have to be new. What have you been listening to and enjoying lately?
A lot of Nico Case.
God bless me, I'm a free man with no place free to go. Paralyzed and collar tight, no pills for what I fear. This is crazy. Wish I was the moon tonight. Chimney fall.
A lot of Nico Case. I just saw her for my birthday.
Nice.
Yeah, I love Nico Case. What else have I been listening to? Let's see. Well, Boom 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 by the Venga Boys, obviously. I think one of the constants in my life is always the Carter family.
Oh, nice.
The Carter family is one of the things that kind of centered me when I was becoming disillusioned with some of the modern music in the mid 2000s, and I was leaving the band. I was like, enough of this. I need to figure out where this all came from. And so I'm always listening to the Carter family.
There's a dark and the troubled side of life. There's a bright and a sunny side too. So we meet with the darkness and strife. This sunny side we also may view. Keep on the sunny side, always on the sunny side. Keep on the sunny side of life. It will help us every day. It will brighten all.
Yeah, it just reminds me of what's important. Let's see, what else? What have I been listening to lately? Erica, what have I been listening to lately? Yeah, I mean, there's always some punk. Let's see, what was, Propaganda, man. Propaganda. They were important to me when I was 17. I think I learned a lot about what it meant to be, to not take narratives at face value, and Propaganda is still writing just hard-nosed political punk songs, and so these last few months especially,
yeah, man,
it's really helpful. It's been really helpful to listen to some Propaganda.
In spite of endless war, restriction, level of advance, depredation and plague, every one of your ancestors survived the reproductive age. The probability that you are even here is next to none. Hey, no pressure, everyone.
Well, Matt, thanks so much for coming out to Dad Rocks. It was great to reconnect with you, and this was an amazing conversation.
Totally, Josh. An honor to be here. I look forward to seeing you again sometime soon.
Thanks for listening to this episode, and special thanks again to Matt Goldman for coming on to the show. While Matt doesn't have any personal social media accounts for you to follow, you can follow his bookstore /cafe/bar/event space, The Common Good, on Instagram at The Common Good NY, and on Facebook by searching up The Common Good. You can also check out their website at thecommongoodny.com. You can find Matt's former bands, Random Task, Steel Train, and The Fatal Flaw on all major streaming services if you want to check out some of the music that he has recorded over the years. If you enjoyed what you heard, I would love for you to subscribe to the show and would really appreciate it if you left an honest review on whatever platform you are listening to this on. Or, just tell a friend or two about the show. Either way, it gets the word out, it helps the algorithms, all that good stuff, and gets more ears on this podcast. If you'd like to follow the show on social media, you can do so on Instagram, Threads, and X at DadRocksPod. I apologize, I don't post that much anymore, but when I do, I try to post on all of them, at least on Threads and Instagram, not so much on X anymore, but you can still check out that account. Again, all of them are at DadRocksPod, and you can look us up on Facebook at Dad Rocks Podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or any show ideas for me, or just want to give a shout, you can email at dadrockspod@gmail.com. If you want to check out the music you've heard on this episode in full, there will be a playlist which should be linked in the podcast description. Once again, thank you for listening today, and remember, dads, you rock.